Paul Weidner, mental performance coach guru. Welcome back to the podcast. Parents out there, we're going to get into things you should and should not be watching when you're attending games, things you can take a look at if you need to be looking at things. I was just talking to Paul, like, you don't have to be looking at anything except for, is my kid having a really good time out there? But if you want to go a little bit deeper, we're going to talk about things you should and should not be looking at. Paul, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Minus the guru part. I'm excited to do it.
All right. Well, I just thought I'd throw in a little something extra to get things kicked off.
Yeah.
So parents, I get a lot of parents sending me texts, sending me emails about things that they're seeing within the game, which again, like, I'm a parent, I've been there and I'm watching things. So I get it for sure. But how can we best help our son or daughter? That's what's important here. And it goes back to me. We are trying to get them to focus on the process that leads to the best chance of success. What can they be putting forth that in the moment will give them the best at bat, the best they can bring to this pitch, this free throw, this shot, whatever it might be. So if we're only focused on the outcome and then we share that with our son or daughter, we're doing them a disservice. Paul, where do you want to take this to start things off?
Sure. Yeah, first things first, I think the cool part about being able to talk with parents about this is that this is a way in which, if you're watching from afar, nobody will know your athlete better than you, including their coaches, including their teammates. So because you've raised them from the time they were little, you know their little body language things, you know their little mannerisms more than a coach that maybe is coaching them for the first time would. And so your ability to read maybe externally what's happening internally, good, bad, or indifferent, is higher than most. And that doesn't mean you need to analyze and overanalyze every little thing. But this can be so valuable because, yeah, you're going to recognize when the footwork is a little bit more antsy and a little more anxious, and then them, maybe failing to regulate on that. Or, oh man, you look pretty calm. How do I know that? Well, this, and this that you've been doing since you were 6 years old that tells me you're just having a good time right now because I know you really well. So I'm looking forward to talking about this topic because you're going to do a great job of being able to see that stuff from afar. You're not in the dugout with them. You're not in the field from them, but you can observe and make these things a priority as opposed to just the results.
That's an amazing point. Great point. And the coaches are watching 12 guys or however many, and they have other things going on rather than what your son or daughter is doing for their pregame or is doing pre-at bat. Like, they have way more things going on. So that's really great that parents can take advantage of this to a certain extent. But again, it has to be based around what's best for our kids. And I think that's where it gets a little bit mixed up sometimes. Mm-hmm. So where would you start with that, Paul? As parents are watching this, analyzing it, for lack of a better term, that might be a little too strong, but watching this, where should they start?
Yeah. Anything that points to things they're doing proactively to help them either regulate themselves or have more resiliency, those are usually action item things or actions or tools that they can actually implement that you can see that says that either, yep, they're trying to have that good process or they're lacking in that area one way or another. So somebody that, I used this example already, but anxious in the batter's box because they have, really antsy footwork or their body's moving in a certain type of way and they're not utilizing a good breath. Cool. You're not watching for that. Or you're watching for it and they're not doing it. So are they doing their good breath work? Are they doing some focal point things, which, we've talked about in the past, but the tools that, help them with their regulation or resiliency, are they or are they not doing those things? And you can really hone in on those types of things. And then this is really the point of all this, which is, if you can be really good about spotting those things, that can also, most importantly, drive the conversation after the game, where it's not just about how the results happen. Everything that we do from a regulation and resiliency standpoint is with the goal in mind of eventually producing good results. That's what we're there to do. We're trying to, especially if you're playing in a very competitive situation. But we know that the things, the tools, the breathing, focal points, the things like that can help with that regulation and resiliency. If they do those things, it gives them the best chance of having that success. So your conversation can be about the things that are giving them the best chance, as opposed to about the results. And that's really what this podcast is about, is how can you focus on things other than the results to help guide and drive the conversation, and ultimately things that are much more controllable than the results as well. So that's what this whole thing is about.
Right. So to spin it back, and parents, again, if you've listened to any of these, we're super process oriented. The result is going to be what it's going to be based on our process to give us the best chance. So I think a couple things that pop into my head as you're talking through that, having discussions with your son or daughter about what they think gives them the best chance in two areas, in my opinion. One, throughout the whole game. So things that they do that they want to be doing leading up to a game that will help them to have more energy or be more calm or be more resilient, whatever kind of is important to them. And again, at younger ages, parents, you can certainly, these are just great conversations to have with your son or daughter. Like, what do you think gives you the best chance of having a really good time out there and playing to the best of your abilities? Boom. Let's talk about that. Well, I want to laugh, have some fun with my teammates before the game. I want to listen to music before the game. I want to journal before the game, whatever it might be, to have the most fun, have the most success. So what are those things pregame that our son or daughter wants to be doing, needs to be doing? So we can kind of watch that, but have those discussions. And then it comes down to two other areas, and let's get into these because these are probably more where parents can help and pay attention. Pre-at-bat, pre-shot, pre-play, whatever it is in your sport, when I go out to wrestle between periods. What are the things that give our son or daughter the best chance of success in that specific situation? And again, kids are going to be different. I just had a client this morning. He talks about he needs to be super calm in his at-bats. So what allows him to be super calm? Other kids might want to be more amped up. They might want to have a level 9 or 10 level of energy and whatever it might be. So understand your kid, talk to them about this. Like, where do you want to be? So what are your thoughts on that, Paul? Like, how can parents see this, evaluate it, keep an eye on it in that situation, that pre-at-bat, whatever it might be?
Yep. Really good that you brought up the fact that it's individualized to the kid as to what their, I call it like an optimal performance state or optimal performance line. Like, that is individualized to each kid. And that's a very mature conversation to be had. But for sure, the example you're talking about, some athletes are trying to be as calm as they possibly can because they know that that's the way that their mind is going to be able to make the best decisions, the best, all that different type of stuff. And some athletes, in order to really become as focused as they need to be, they need to have a little bit more energy in the batter's box. And then setting your sights on what allows you to get to that optimal state as often as possible. So somebody that is trying to be as calm as possible, breath work is for everybody, no matter what. But like, the amount that you will have to focus on slow, intentional breathing that's going to slow your heart rate down, get oxygen to the right parts of your brain, like, that's going to have to be a part of that kid's routine. And so you can watch for that. Whereas a kid that maybe needs to bring a little bit more energy, he might have a little bit more of a quick twitchy like thing that he does as a part of his routine with his feet or his bat or something like that. And then it would be about that athlete being able to repeat that routine over and over and over again. We can dissect a lot of things as far as what a routine should look like and what it should consist of. However, I would argue that the most important thing is that you have a routine. So kids that lack that, they're going to end up doing physically whatever their mind feels mentally, and it's going to follow that instead of a routine, which allows you to be proactive about how you want to be mentally.
Right.
If you lack a routine, you're going to do something, but it's going to be a reflection of your mental state as opposed to a driver of your mental state, if that makes sense. So that didn't give you something that was too pinpointed, but I think the individuality of that is really important. And then for you as a parent who again knows your athlete better than anybody and can have those conversations, seeing whether or not that routine was pointing them in the right direction. Very calm. Okay, what do I got to do? A little bit more energy, a little bit more amped up. Okay, what do I need to do there? And then we can go a bunch of different places from there. But just that you have a routine that points you in that direction is super important.
No, I think that's great. Not to be too specific, because every kid is different. They should have a routine when they're out in the field. They should have a routine on the base pass. They should have a routine when they step to the free throw line. They should have a routine. And again, it doesn't have to be super complex. For many kids, less is more. Like maybe it's just a breath. Maybe it's just a shoulders up, shoulders down. Maybe it's just one positive thought in my head. It can be a lot of stuff, but these are just super fun conversations to have with your sons and daughters. And it goes back to, and then we'll hit this in a second here afterwards. But if I know up front what I'm trying to do and the kid knows what their routine, their process is, now we can have great conversations on how did it go, and not based on results, which is what we want to go to. And results, I'm not going to say they don't have anything to do with this, but trying to steer them away from it. It's more about how they felt. Were they in a place, we talk about being in the zone, were they in a place where they felt like they had the best chance of success? So in kids, and it's normal, and it's okay if we're relating this to results. I went 3 for 4. Dad, my process today was great. It was spot on. Well, tell me more about that. Like, what was the good parts about your process? So before I get ahead of myself on that, what comes next? So we got the beforehand, having a good process, a good routine, personalized to each and every athlete. And this is, again, something, we'll get into deep as mental performance coaches on deck, walking to the plate, at the plate. But again, parents, you can just go back to, Billy, Johnny, Joey, that looked like you were super calm in that at bat. What things did you do to get there? What things helped you? And then take that back as far or not as far. It depends on the kid as you want to go. But what comes after then? After the event, what are we looking for?
Yep. So one of the things that I found ourselves working with our athletes on this summer a lot, I'm really, really interested in the amount in which the result affects blanket statement called engagement. So does the result affect their engagement? So that's their focus, their energy, their effort, things that would fall under the term engagement. How tied is my level of engagement to a result that I just had? And trying to disconnect those as much as can realistically be expected for somebody that's competing in a competitive environment and wants to have success. Is it ever going to be totally detached? No, it's not. But we want it to be very detached, and a lot of athletes really struggle with this. So one of the things that's a hard place for us to start the conversation is, when things are going well for him or her, like he just seems super engaged and super into it and whatever. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but that's a little bit common sense, right? Like things are going really well. So yeah, it's pretty easy to be like a really good teammate and a really good, because things are going well for that athlete. And does one thing lead to the other? Hopefully. But we can kind of tell when it's like just a reaction to recent results. What I want to see is when it's not going well, how much are you able to maintain that engagement overall? And you as parents can absolutely observe that. Absolutely. And I hope that you do, maybe as the most important thing to observe. Like when you hit a double, I noticed that you were all about the team and everything was great. When you struck out, you were on the end of the dugout and you didn't want to talk to anybody, couldn't be told anything. And now you're just waiting for the next good result to bring you back into the engagement piece. And I just gave you the extremes examples, but you can tell how attached that is one way or another. We were playing, just to give you a quick example, I had a team that I was coaching this past weekend, was down a few of their players. Like we were undermanned a little bit with the team that I was coaching, and we were playing against another team that was a very, very high level team. And they had a player on it that I know was committed to a very high level Division I program. That player had a bad game against our team that was undermanned. I'm just going to call it what it was. Like we were not at playing at that level that team had, all their guys and everything was going well. And I watched him struggle a bunch, and I watched him be the same guy the whole time. And I thought that was way more impressive than any physical skill set that kid can bring. Because at some point in time, the game is going to kick you down. And if you turn into a totally different person, that's a problem. And I thought that was super impressive of that guy who's like, by all means, should be absolutely killing it right now in this game against who he's facing and whatever. And he wasn't. He really struggled. Fantastic player, but he still behaved the same way. And I thought that was great. So I'm getting a little long-winded here, but that's an exact example of what I'm talking about. Whereas we see a lot of kids go the other way, where it's like when it's going well, everything's fine, and when it's not, we're just a totally different person from an engagement standpoint.
Yeah, really good. And this is super complex, or can be super complex, parents. And this is, I mean, I'll speak for myself, but I'm pretty sure this is true with Paul. Like, as a mental performance coach, this is what we work on mostly.
Okay.
People don't call us, lean on us when everything's going great. It's when things aren't going great. How do I best respond? What kinds of things do I think about? What do I do? So it can be pretty complex depending on the athlete, but how can you help? Things, I think it goes back to the player, the athlete understanding these are the thoughts and actions I'm taking when things are going well, as Paul explained really well. Like when they hit that double, this is what it looks like. It's very obvious what it looks like. When they understand that, what am I feeling? What are the thoughts I'm having? What are the actions I'm taking? Okay, when it doesn't go well, how can we get as close to those as possible? And these are oftentimes controllable things. Well, what is your body language saying? Is it screaming, I just struck out? Or is it saying, next pitch, let's move on? Those are things you can watch for. And you can talk to your son or daughter about what are the thoughts, how can we get back to positive thoughts? And again, this is harder for some than others. I just struck out with the bases loaded. It's going to be a little bit hard. So you can have great conversations. I saw your body language. It felt like you weren't as engaged as you were early in the game. Did you feel that? What do you think you can do to respond better next time? Great conversations. Well, I can do this, this, and this. Some of it, not to try to get too deep on this, but some of it goes back to what's really important to them in the first place and having a foundation of understanding I'm out there to have fun and develop and try not to emphasize success. That's a lot easier said than done. But what are the controllables and things that the average parent, for lack of a better term, can do? You know what? I saw your body language suffer. Can you improve on that? Can you focus on that next time? Can you get on the fence a little bit quicker? Can you have a next pitch mentality? Can you draw on some thoughts, something that gets you back in the game? And Paul and I have talked about this a lot. Baseball's hard in that because there's these breaks. If you're the first batter in the inning, now you got to watch 2, 3, 4 of your buddies hit, and you're still sitting there thinking, "Oh, I had a terrible at bat." Something like basketball is a little bit faster, football. But Paul talks a lot about this. What's the next best thing? What's the one thing you can latch onto? The next step. I had a bad at bat. I'm going to get on the fence. Innings over, I'm going to go out and I'm going to play great defense. So there are things that you can talk to your athletes about, parents, that in the moment help them to push forward and be more resilient, as Paul said. So just notice these things, and again, have conversations with your son or daughter. What's it feel like when it feels really good? Let's try to get as close as we can to that. Is that pie in the sky thinking I'm going to strike out and everything's going to be great? No, that's not it. But how fast can we respond? Can we redirect our thoughts and our energy? Anything to add to that, Paul?
It just usually looks in one of two. It's one of the things that came to my mind. It just usually looks like one of two things when they lose their engagement. It's either dynamite or turtle. Like if they're going to lose engagement, they're either going to turn into dynamite, which is I'm explosive. I'm actually throwing things, or I want to, like one of those two things, or turtle, which is like in my shell, I don't want to be talked to. Both things push away your engagement because it makes it so people can't lift you up because you're pushing them away. But if you're looking visually, and you'll know your son or daughter as to which ones they are, dynamite, not good, throwing stuff. Turtle, it might look a little bit better because you're not throwing stuff, but both of them are pushing people away. So just know maybe which one of the tendencies your son or daughter tends to have, and then look to see whether or not they're doing either of those to get a sense of whether or not they're doing well or not well in this topic.
Love it. And great things to have conversations about. I really like that. And as you were just saying that, and it's progress in these things. If it's dynamite and it's 6 sticks going off, we're trying to get it down to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? Like, so progressing these, working through this with your son or daughter, really being, again, it's so powerful. It takes you away from the result-based thing and helps your kid to, more important, helps your kid to get away from the result-based things. And my parents are in tune with this, and they really want me to have the best chance of success going into games, going into at-bats. And then they really want me to grow and develop within each game, within each tournament. Oh, man, just lights out, super, super powerful stuff. So be engaged in those things going forward as best you can. And I'll say this, it also allows us as parents to enjoy things way more. We're not riding the roller coaster either. We're just looking for fun and engagement and development. And whatever the results is, the result's going to be, let's move on. How do we get better? How do we keep having fun? And that goes for parents as well. Love it, Paul. Really good stuff. Thank you so much. Anything to just wrap it up for us?
No, thank you, parents.
All right. Thanks, parents. We'll be back again. Hopefully this helped. We'll be back again with another podcast really soon. Thanks.